It was a quiet day on Earth, the kind that felt almost too peaceful, as if the universe had taken a brief pause to breathe. But that tranquility shattered when something extraordinary happened. A fleet of massive ships, unlike anything humanity had ever seen, entered Earth's atmosphere. They were not just large, they were enormous floating behemoths, gleaming with an otherworldly technology that glimmered under the sun's rays. The world's governments scrambled, trying to make sense of the sudden appearance, and panic spread like wildfire. News outlets, social media, and governments were flooded with questions and confusion. Was this a threat? Was Earth under attack? Despite the fear, there was something oddly mesmerizing about the ships, their smooth metallic surfaces reflecting the blue sky, almost as if they had no place here. Then they landed. The aliens made their way to Earth with precision, each step calculated, their movements deliberate and cold. From one of the ships came a figure unlike any humanity had ever encountered, a towering figure draped in regal robes, with glowing eyes that seemed to pierce through the very fabric of space. She was the alien queen, leader of an ancient and terrifying species known for their ruthless domination across galaxies. Her reputation preceded her an unyielding conqueror, a force of nature that none dared challenge. But now she was gravely wounded. The queen's once pristine robes were stained with dark blood, and she was supported by two of her most loyal warriors, who seemed as imposing as her. The alien queen's injury was serious. An attack from a rival faction in the ongoing intergalactic war had left her barely alive, her life hanging by a thread. The very thing that made her feared across the stars, the deadliest dragon, a species known for their immortality and invulnerability, had now been wounded in a way that no one thought possible. Her arrival on Earth sent shockwaves throughout the world. News channels buzzed with updates, but no one could make sense of it. Humanity had always believed itself to be insignificant in the grand scope of the universe, too small and too weak to be involved in any kind of intergalactic struggle. Yet, here was a creature whose very existence defied the natural order, one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, standing on Earth's soil, and it needed help. But the question was, would anyone help? Earth had long been a quiet observer, a species too busy with its own troubles to reach out to the stars. But now, the universe had brought its most dangerous player to their doorstep. The Queen's presence created a conflict within the Earth's leaders. Some called for immediate action, while others urged caution, fearful of what might happen if they chose to help her. In the minds of many, aiding the Queen would be a mistake. She was a symbol of tyranny, a reminder of the oppression that the alien factions had imposed on weaker species. To assist her would be to align with a force that had wrought havoc across the galaxy. Yet, there were those who saw an opportunity to gain favor with the alien species and secure Earth's place in the cosmic hierarchy. But even they couldn't ignore the risk involved. Among the fearful and the ambitious was Dr. Elena Cruz, a brilliant human doctor known for her groundbreaking work in advanced medicine. She watched from her lab, her mind racing with thoughts. It was clear that the Queen was not merely injured, she was dying, and the chances of her survival were slim. But as she observed the alien Queen from afar, she noticed something that others didn't. There was an elegance in her suffering, a quiet grace in the way she held herself, even in her weakened state. The Queen, despite her condition, exuded an air of dignity, a power that was undeniable, even when she was at her most vulnerable. It was a stark contrast to the alien soldiers who surrounded her, their faces devoid of emotion, as though the Queen's fate meant nothing to them. Dr. Cruz's curiosity got the better of her, and she made her decision. She would help the Queen. It wasn't out of admiration for the alien's power, but because it was the right thing to do. The Queen was in need, and humanity, despite its flaws, had always prided itself on helping those in need. But the decision was far from easy. Not only would Dr. Cruz have to contend with the intergalactic politics of the situation, but she also faced the daunting challenge of treating a species whose biology was unlike anything humanity had encountered before. There were no references to rely on, no studies to draw from. It would be trial and error, and that terrified her. She didn't share her plans with anyone at first, knowing how divisive the idea would be. The governments of Earth were locked in heated discussions about how to handle the situation. The Queen's fleet was hovering in the sky, sending a silent but clear message: aid her or face the consequences. The alien Queen was not just a leader. She was the very symbol of power for her species. And yet, despite her immense power, she had come to Earth in search of help. It was a rare sight, an arrogant conqueror who had once brought entire civilizations to their knees, now seeking aid from a species considered insignificant by the galactic community. Dr. Cruz knew that this was a turning point. It was a chance for humanity to show what it was capable of: its resourcefulness, its ingenuity, and its unwavering commitment to life, no matter where it came from. She gathered a team of medical experts and gathered all the knowledge she could about the Queen's species. There was no time to waste. The Queen's condition was deteriorating rapidly, and every minute counted. As the team worked feverishly, the world watched. There was a palpable tension in the air as Earth's fate seemed tied to the survival of the alien Queen. If Dr. Cruz succeeded, Earth could find itself in the good graces of the most powerful species in the galaxy. If she failed, the consequences could be disastrous. The alien Queen had already made it clear failure to help would mean destruction. But as the hours passed and the team worked tirelessly, the question remained: could humanity truly heal such a being? And if so, what would this mean for Earth? Would they become pawns in a galactic game they didn't understand? Or could they find a way to use this unexpected encounter to secure a place for humanity among the stars? No one knew. All they knew was that Earth had been thrust into a larger, dangerous game, and it was up to Dr. Cruz to decide whether to play along or to walk away. Time was running out. The Queen's wounds were not just physical, they were tied to her very essence. Would humanity rise to the challenge, or would the universe's most fearsome predator perish at their hands? The stakes had never been higher. The decision had been made. Dr. Elena Cruz, the courageous yet cautious leader of the medical team, was now at the forefront of an unprecedented mission to heal the wounded alien Queen. Despite her deep reservations, Dr. Cruz couldn't ignore the overwhelming pull of what was at stake. The world's eyes were fixed on Earth's most unexpected visitors, and the stakes had never been higher. The fate of the Queen, whose survival was as uncertain as it was vital, now rested in her hands. Yet, as the first steps were taken, something deeper than medical intervention became clear. Earth's involvement in galactic affairs was far from simple. The alien fleet loomed overhead, their silent presence a constant reminder that they were not here out of goodwill, but out of desperate need. Earth's leaders were divided. Some were pushing for immediate cooperation with the aliens, believing that aligning with the most powerful species in the galaxy could bring unparalleled advantages. Others, however, wanted to keep their distance, fearing that aiding the Queen could lead to Earth becoming a pawn in a larger cosmic game they didn't fully understand. Many questioned Dr. Cruz's bold decision. How could one human doctor, without the benefit of alien technology or vast resources, possibly save someone so powerful, so dangerous? Yet, Dr. Cruz couldn't help but feel a strange sense of duty. To refuse help to the Queen, to let her die in front of them, would be to choose the path of fear. And humanity, for all its flaws, had never chosen fear. They had always chosen action. Her determination grew as she thought of the consequences, not just for Earth, but for the broader universe. If the Queen died, there was no telling what chaos could follow. Would her death spark a war between her allies? Would her death spark a larger conflict in which Earth would be caught in the crossfire? But as the medical team prepared for the delicate procedures ahead, the room was thick with tension. The Queen's loyal guards watched over her as if she were their own fragile god. They moved with a strange, almost unnerving silence. The air between the humans and the alien soldiers was thick with mistrust. They had come to Earth with one mission: heal their Queen or face the consequences. They were impatient, wary, and eager to return to their ship once their Queen was healed. Dr. Cruz could feel their cold eyes on her, assessing, judging. But their silence spoke louder than words. They were waiting. In the early hours of the treatment, the difficulties became apparent. The Queen's biology was unlike anything Dr. Cruz had encountered. Her wounds were not just physical, but they seemed to be tied to her very essence, as though her life force itself was being drained. No scans or scans of any Earth-made medical equipment could fully grasp the complexity of her alien physiology. Even the most advanced human technology seemed primitive when compared to what the Queen's body required. Every step forward was a step into the unknown. Yet Dr. Cruz wasn't alone. Her team, made up of brilliant scientists and doctors from across the globe, began to work tirelessly, trying new methods, experimenting with the few resources they had. However, as the days went on, the Queen's condition worsened and tensions grew. Her loyal alien warriors were growing increasingly impatient, their voices now rising in anger. The alien soldiers had no love for humanity. They were cold, emotionless, and ready to take action if things didn't go their way. But even they couldn't ignore the strange power that surrounded Dr. Cruz. Her unflinching determination was something they hadn't encountered before in all their years of conquest. These humans, with their limited technology, were doing something that even the most advanced species in the galaxy couldn't achieve. They were trying to save the life of someone whose very presence had once destroyed entire civilizations. In the midst of the growing tension, Dr. Cruz found herself questioning her decision. She'd been warned about the Queen, about her cruelty, about her cold, calculating nature. There were whispers about the Queen's past, how she had crushed entire worlds under her heel without hesitation. To help her, to bring her back to life, could be disastrous. But at the same time, Dr. Cruz realized something that no one else had considered. The Queen wasn't just an enemy to be feared. She was a leader in pain, and if humanity could somehow heal her, it could shift the balance of power across the galaxy. As the situation became more delicate, Dr. Cruz had to make a choice. The Queen, despite her alien nature, was still sentient, still a being capable of understanding and making decisions. Dr. Cruz's team, now under her leadership, focused not just on healing the Queen's body, but also on treating the emotional wounds, the feelings of fear, pride, and powerlessness that radiated from the alien Queen. It was a complex, delicate process. Dr. Cruz began to see the Queen not just as a conqueror, but as a ruler in crisis, caught in the web of war and politics that she had created. A breakthrough came when Dr. Cruz proposed a new technique, one that no alien species had ever considered, a deep psychological and physiological treatment combined with her knowledge of human empathy. It wasn't just medicine, it was understanding. She could feel the alien Queen's pain, the strain of her years of conquest, and the fear of her inevitable fall. But humanity had something that no alien species did: resilience. They had faced death, loss, and destruction throughout their history, and yet they had always found a way to rise again. Dr. Cruz believed that this resilience, this deep-rooted human will to survive, could be the key to saving the Queen. But time was running out. The Queen's wound was infected, spreading through her body like a dark cloud. Her warriors grew more restless, growing impatient with Dr. Cruz and her team. They began to openly question the humans' ability to save their Queen, wondering if their ancient enemies' factions from across the galaxy, who wanted the Queen dead, were waiting for a signal to strike. In a tense meeting, Dr. Cruz confronted the alien soldiers, her voice steady despite the fear bubbling under her skin. "I'm doing everything I can," she said, her gaze unwavering. "But this is a process. Your Queen's survival depends on all of us working together. I cannot promise instant results, but I can promise that I'll do everything in my power to heal her." The silence in the room was deafening, broken only by the soft hum of medical equipment. The alien warriors stared at her, their expression unreadable. Then, one of them, a tall, imposing figure with cold eyes, stepped forward. For a moment, Dr. Cruz wondered if he would lash out, but instead, he simply nodded. It was not a sign of approval, but it was enough to show that, for the first time since the Queen's arrival, there was a glimmer of trust. Dr. Cruz had won a small battle. But the war for the Queen's life was far from over. The alliance between humanity and the alien forces was fragile at best, but it was all they had. As Dr. Cruz looked down at the Queen, who lay unconscious on the table, she knew that the road ahead would be long and filled with dangers. But one thing was certain: humanity had just taken its first step onto the galactic stage, and there was no turning back. The Queen's survival was no longer just about one alien life. It was about humanity's place in a universe full of untold dangers and wonders. And Dr. Cruz had no intention of backing down. The days had become a blur. Dr. Elena Cruz and her team worked around the clock, trying every method they could to heal the alien queen. The creature's wounds were unlike anything they had encountered. Her skin was thick, resistant to their medical tools, and her internal organs were so different from any known species that even the best of Earth's technology couldn't make heads or tails of it. But Dr. Cruz wasn't about to give up. She had committed herself to this impossible task, and despite the growing tension from the alien warriors who surrounded her, she refused to show any sign of weakness. Every hour felt like a lifetime, and the Queen's condition seemed to hover between life and death. Dr. Cruz was in her lab, reviewing her notes late one night, when something unexpected happened. A small team of alien medics had joined her, reluctantly at first, but now their cold demeanor had softened slightly. Their leader, a pale-skinned alien with long, dark eyes named Zivrin. But now, he approached Dr. Cruz with an air of urgency, his usually emotionless face showing a flicker of concern. "Dr. Cruz," Zivrin said, his voice carrying an odd hint of tension. "There is something you should see." Dr. Cruz followed Zivrin to the Queen's chambers. The medical team had been working on stabilizing the Queen's body, but Dr. Cruz had been doing something else, something risky. She had been studying the Queen's physiology on a deeper level, trying to understand how this creature could be so powerful, so indestructible, and yet so fragile at the same time. As she stood at the Queen's side, Dr. Cruz felt a deep, unsettling sense of connection to this alien being, perhaps because she herself had been forced to fight so hard for survival. Zivrin handed her a strange device, a sleek metallic scanner, unlike anything Dr. Cruz had ever seen. "This device scans deeper than your technology, Dr. Cruz," Zivrin explained. "It is a tool used to understand the very essence of our Queen's being. It will show you what our medical tools cannot." Dr. Cruz took the device, her heart racing. She had no idea what it could reveal, but she knew it was her only chance to uncover the truth. She activated the device, and the screen lit up with streams of data. At first, it looked like a jumble of alien symbols, nothing that Dr. Cruz could immediately understand. But as she studied the data, something started to take shape. Hidden deep within the Queen's body was an energy source, one that seemed to pulse with an ancient, almost supernatural power. It was unlike any biological function she had ever seen. The energy wasn't just a byproduct of the Queen's physiology, it was integrated into her very DNA, an essential part of what made her and her species so deadly. The scans revealed a terrifying truth. The Queen's species, the deadliest dragons, were not just biologically superior, they were, in fact, the product of an ancient form of energy that had been embedded in their DNA for millennia. This energy had allowed them to dominate countless civilizations and withstand even the most devastating of injuries. The deadliest dragons were, in essence, living batteries of unimaginable power, but they were not invincible. This power came at a cost. Zivrin watched as Dr. Cruz's face grew pale, his eyes narrowing in understanding. "This energy," he said softly, his voice low with a mix of awe and dread, "is what makes her species nearly immortal. It's the very essence of their being. Without it, they would be no more than any other species. But when the energy is drained, when it's damaged, they die." Dr. Cruz felt a cold shiver run down her spine. She had known that the Queen's biology was extraordinary, but she hadn't understood the full implications. The Queen was dying not just from physical wounds, but because this energy was destabilizing, throwing her body into disarray. Healing the Queen would require more than just medical treatment, it would require stabilizing this ancient energy source, and it wasn't something that could be done with the tools of any species, not even the Queen's own kind. The room was heavy with silence. Dr. Cruz's mind raced as she processed the information. She knew that if this discovery got out, it would change everything. The Queen, for all her cruelty and power, was not an invincible tyrant. She was a creature bound to the same natural laws that governed all life. If she died, her species would lose its greatest leader, and the entire intergalactic balance of power would shift. But there was a deeper secret hidden in the data. The energy source within the Queen was not just a power generator, it was sentient. There were signs that it had its own consciousness, a primitive, ancient awareness that could influence the Queen's decisions, her actions, even her survival. It wasn't just the Queen who needed healing. It was this energy that required attention, too. If Dr. Cruz could stabilize it, the Queen could live, but if she failed, the consequences would be unimaginable. Dr. Cruz was torn. She couldn't ignore the political and moral implications of what she had discovered. The Queen's power was something that could be harnessed if it were understood and controlled, but at what cost? And how could humanity, with its limited knowledge, even begin to comprehend the significance of such a force? The galactic powers that had once feared the Queen would stop at nothing to control her. And if the Queen survived, would she become an even more dangerous force in the galaxy, or could she change the future of her people and bring peace? As Dr. Cruz pondered the possibilities, Zevran spoke again. There is one other thing you should know. This energy is not unique to our Queen. Every deadliest dragon carries it within them, but it's at its most potent in the Queen. If the energy is repaired, it will not only heal her, it will give her power beyond anything the galaxy has ever seen. Dr. Cruz felt the weight of Zevran's words. This was bigger than she had ever imagined. The fate of the Queen now rested on a fragile thread, and the consequences of her survival or death would ripple across the galaxy. Earth, too, would feel the effects, whether they liked it or not. The team worked tirelessly over the following days, experimenting with every method they could think of to stabilize the Queen's energy source. Dr. Cruz's mind raced, and with each passing hour, she grew more and more certain that the key to healing the Queen lay not just in the physical realm, but in the realm of energy itself, something humanity had yet to fully understand. It was becoming clear that the Queen's fate was linked, not only to her survival, but to the future of the entire galaxy. What Dr. Cruz had uncovered was more than just a medical challenge. It was the potential to change everything. The energy source within the Queen was a mystery older than time, and if humanity could unlock its secrets, they might just become players in a game far larger than they ever anticipated. But at what cost? The answers were coming, but they would raise more questions than they could ever imagine. And every decision made from this point forward would have repercussions that no one could fully predict. Dr. Cruz knew that the next step would either save the Queen or unleash a force that could alter the fate of the universe forever. The medical bay had grown quiet, a tense silence hanging over the room like a heavy fog. Every monitor blinked steadily. Every heartbeat of the alien Queen echoed like a countdown in Dr. Elena Cruz's ears. She and her team had done everything possible to stabilize the ancient energy pulsing through the Queen's body. They'd made progress barely, but it wasn't enough. The Queen still hovered between life and death, and something deep in Elena's gut told her time was running out. Then, without warning, everything changed. It started with a tremor beneath their feet. Just a faint vibration at first, then stronger enough to make the lights flicker and the medical equipment rattle. Elena rushed to a nearby console, her fingers moving quickly over the controls. A red alert flashed across the screen. Unauthorized ships were entering Earth's orbit. And they weren't from the Queen's fleet. Moments later, a broadcast came through in alien language, urgent and sharp, translated on the screen into chilling clarity. Stand down. Step away from the Queen. Earth will not interfere. Elena stared at the message, stunned. A rival faction had arrived, one of the Queen's ancient enemies. They had been waiting, watching from the shadows, hoping for this moment. If the Queen died on Earth, her power would disappear, and they would rise to take her place in the galaxy. Now, seeing that Earth's doctors might actually succeed in saving her, they were moving in to stop it. But the danger didn't come only from above. Within the medical compound itself, something far more alarming was happening. A small group of human scientists, military officers, even one of the security leads suddenly revealed themselves as traitors. These were individuals who had been secretly working with the alien faction, planted months ago through covert manipulation and bribery. They believed Earth had no business helping a tyrant like the Queen. To them, saving her meant dooming humanity to a future of servitude beneath an intergalactic empire. It all happened so quickly. Alarms blared, doors slammed shut, and weapons were drawn. A full-on lockdown of the medical center began, but not before the traitors struck. A power generator was damaged. Lights flickered, and one of the life support modules connected to the Queen began to fail. Dr. Cruz acted on instinct, shouting orders to her team while racing to keep the Queen alive. Sparks flew from broken panels, oxygen hissed from cracked pipes, and for a moment, chaos ruled the room. Amid the confusion, a voice echoed low, soft yet powerful. The Queen had opened her eyes. They weren't just eyes, they were stars. Deep and ancient, holding a wisdom and weariness that words could not capture. For a moment, everything stopped. Her warriors knelt immediately, heads bowed, but the Queen's gaze was fixed on Elena. The connection was instant. The Queen recognized her. Not as a conqueror, not as a servant, but as something she had rarely seen in her long life, an equal. "You are different," the Queen whispered, her voice crackling with weakness, but steady. "You fight not for power, but purpose." Elena was stunned. In all their time studying the Queen, she had never heard her speak. And now, in the midst of collapse and betrayal, the Queen had chosen to speak to her. There was a moment of understanding, brief but powerful, between two leaders, one human, one alien bound by desperation and something more, trust. But that moment shattered as the traitors launched their final move. A coded signal sent from inside the base was meant to guide the rival ships to their exact location. If they succeeded, Earth wouldn't just lose the Queen, it would become a battleground. Elena acted fast. She shut down the central communications, rerouted emergency systems, and sealed the medical bay manually. With the help of Zivran and a few loyal alien warriors, the traitors were subdued, though not without cost. Two of Elena's own team members were wounded. The base was left damaged, power flickering and systems failing, but the Queen was still alive. Outside, the alien enemy ships began descending rapidly. Earth's defense systems, still far behind the advanced technology of alien species, prepared for the worst. A war seemed inevitable. But then, something unexpected happened. The Queen rose. Still weak, still healing, she stood with the help of her guards. Her towering form, draped in flickering energy, glowed brighter than ever before. The energy Elena and her team had worked to stabilize had begun to fuse with her body. Her wounds hadn't just closed, they had transformed. She looked reborn. Without warning, the Queen raised her hand, and a pulse of raw energy shot into the sky. It spread like a ripple through the atmosphere. The enemy ships paused, caught in the force of it. Instruments across Earth lit up, sensors overwhelmed by the burst of power. The Queen wasn't just showing strength, she was sending a message. She was not finished, and she had chosen to protect Earth. The rival fleet, sensing the change in power, hesitated. They didn't retreat immediately, but they didn't fire either. The Queen, standing in front of the stunned human medical team, spoke again louder now, her voice ringing through the compound. "I came seeking survival. I found something greater. I found defiance, compassion, humanity." She turned to Elena, her voice softer now. "You did not have to help me. Yet you did. This world is unlike the others." The Queen then faced the sky, and with another wave of her hand, a beam of golden light fired from her arm. It wasn't a weapon, it was a signal. Within moments, her own fleet responded, surrounding the enemy ships in a defensive formation. There would be no war today. Not because of fear, but because the Queen had declared Earth under her protection. The enemy, outmaneuvered and outnumbered, withdrew. Slowly, their ships disappeared into space, leaving a stunned silence in their wake. Elena sat down, exhausted. Her body ached, her mind raced, and her heart pounded, but somewhere deep inside, she felt something she hadn't expected: hope. The Queen had not only survived, she had changed. And Earth, once seen as a forgotten world on the edge of the galaxy, had just become something new, a beacon. But this new alliance was fragile. Many questions remained. What did the Queen's transformation mean? Would she keep her word? And would the other galactic powers accept this new balance? For now, Elena had only one answer. Humanity had stood its ground, and the galaxy had noticed. The air was still heavy with the weight of everything that had happened. The battle that never came. The betrayals that had been exposed. The impossible survival of the deadliest Dragon Queen. But now, something else lingered too, something Earth hadn't seen in a very long time when it looked to the stars, the beginning of change. Dr. Elena Cruz stood at the edge of the landing platform as the morning sun broke across the sky, casting golden light over the damaged facility. The Queen stood beside her, tall, majestic, no longer weakened. The wounds that had once cut deep into her armored body were gone. Not merely healed, but transformed into radiant marks of power that shimmered faintly with energy. She was more than recovered, she had evolved. Around them, Earth's people watched from afar. Soldiers, scientists, diplomats, and civilians, none daring to approach too closely, but none turning away either. The Queen's presence no longer caused fear. There was awe in their eyes now. Suspicion, yes, but also respect. Something had shifted in those long days and nights. Humanity, stubborn and underestimated, had saved what no other civilization had dared to touch. And now, they were standing beside the very power they once feared. The Queen looked out across the field of humans. Her voice, when it came, was strong, not booming, but resonant, as though each word carried a hidden weight. In my time, I have conquered planets, crushed empires, and silenced those who dared to defy me. I was taught that mercy is weakness, that survival demands dominance. And yet, she turned her gaze to Elena. This fragile world, in all its flaws, did what no armada could. It healed not just my wounds, but something greater. It reminded me of who I once was. She paused, and silence swept the crowd like wind through a field. The Queen's next words were not shouted. They didn't need to be. I offer Earth my oath. From this day forward, no threat shall come to this planet without facing me first. Your skies are under my shield. Your people under my watch. And to those who would strike from the shadows, know this: I have not grown weak. I have grown wise. There was a stunned quiet, then murmurs, then cheers from the onlookers, some in disbelief, others in cautious hope. Earth had just been claimed not as a conquest, but as an ally. The Queen, the most feared being in the known galaxy, had made a promise. And she had spoken it before both her warriors and the stars. But not everyone rejoiced. In the high orbit of Earth, far beyond the reach of radar, ships still lingered. Observers, rivals, political powers that had once thrived in the Queen's shadow now watched with uneasy eyes. The Queen's rebirth wasn't just a medical miracle, it was a shift in the balance of power. If she kept her word to Earth, it would send a message to every empire, every council, every hidden faction in the universe. Humanity was no longer alone.